About to roll the dice, that's why all my life I've been grinding all my life, all my life, grinding all my life. Sacrifice, hustle, pay the price. Want a slice, about to roll the dice, that's why all my life I've been grinding all my life.
Welcome to the second episode of Inside the Grind, where my goal is to highlight our Pasifika athletes and share their stories of how they got to where they are now. Today we have a very, very special guest with us. He's one of my favorite players, especially when I was still playing basketball. In high school, he was a McDonald's All-American and Washington Mr. Basketball. While at Louisville, he led them to 2 Final Fours, and he also won a national championship his senior year. He was named the 2012 and 2013 Most Outstanding Player of the Big East Tournament, becoming the second player ever to win this award multiple times. He was drafted by the Detroit Pistons in 2013. Now he's currently playing basketball overseas in Germany. But more importantly, he is a husband and also a father to 2 beautiful girls. I'd love to introduce Peyton Siva.
Oh, man, thanks for the great introduction. I appreciate it.
No, of course, thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for being here today. And I want to start off just by saying how much of an impact you had on my playing career. As you can see, I was number 3 in college.
Yeah.
Well, it was you and you and Chris Paul, my 2 favorite point guards, and I just want to express my gratitude of how much of an impact you had on my career. And I just feel that in my opinion, being Polynesian, you're the one that kind of paved the way for our culture and like our people, like in my generation, that wanted to pursue basketball. So so I just want to say thank you for that.
That's awesome, man. I appreciate it. That was a big thing for me, especially when I was in college. I showed a lot of love from a lot of family, a lot of the Polynesian culture, community, and it was great, man, to be someone that didn't play football and play a different sport.
No, and first off, you're in Germany. How is that going? How's the lifestyle out there?
It's nice. It's right now we're in lockdown for COVID, but everything is fine. We're able to play. Only things, lifestyle wise, restaurants and things are closed of that nature. But everyday living, just going to the gym, working out, coming home, watching TV, calling my family, spending time with them, and just the regular old grind.
Definitely. How many more years do you think you have left in you?
Oh, I don't know. I have I would say 5-6 good years left in me. So we'll see.
Oh, that's awesome. And so now I just want to dive in a little bit on how, basketball came about in your life. So how old were you when you started playing ball?
I have always just played basketball sporadically. Just I have an older brother, an older sister, and they both played basketball. So I played every sport that they played, from basketball, baseball, football, cricket, everything that we could possibly play. But I didn't really play organized basketball until around the 4th, 5th grade.
Okay. How old were you when you knew that, I could do something with basketball?
I'd say I was probably around 8th grade where I really started getting better. Really started focusing more on basketball. Football was my favorite sport growing up. I played it. Unfortunately, I didn't get as big as some of my cousins. So I went to play basketball instead and, really enjoyed it, really had a knack for it, and started getting a lot better, my 8th grade year going into my freshman year in high school, and really started flourishing in basketball and really thought I had a future in it. Didn't know I would, go as far as where I am now, but thought it can help me, possibly get a college scholarship and, pay for school. And that was just my main goals at the time. Yeah.
And so now going into high school, because you just had so many accolades while being in high school, and I'm just, who was heavily recruiting you when you're in high school?
I think my first scholarship and recruiting came from University of Washington, just being a local Seattle kid. Washington State, and then a lot of Pac-10 schools started calling. at the time Pac-10, now Pac-12, but just like Arizona, Oregon, Oregon State, just, Pac-12, Pac-10 schools then. It wasn't until around my like sophomore, junior year where I started getting recruited heavily by, University of Miami, Louisville, Kentucky at the time, and, other schools. So it wasn't around that time where I really started getting recruited and teams really, were pushing to have me come to their school.
Mm-hmm. And so what made you choose Louisville?
Well, for me, I wanted to get away from home. At a point, I really, really loved UW just because it was the hometown team. But a couple guys ended up committing there. And so I was looking at other schools. Guy from Seattle went there, Terrence Williams, who played at University of Louisville. So I really started paying attention more to them. The conference was amazing at the time, the Big East, old Big East. And, just fell in love with their style. Coach Pitino is a Hall of Fame coach who's has a great pedigree. And they were just, one of the hottest teams in the nations. It looked like a great school. I took my visit. The city was amazing and the fans were amazing, and, just fell in love with it.
Yeah, I know Rick Pitino, we'll get into that, but how was the culture? How was the culture of their team? Because I feel, just from my own experience, culture is just so important, especially, playing basketball. So how was their culture and everything?
As far as when I was in school?
Yes, when you're at
when I was in school, the culture was, great. We were a very tight-knit group. We all stayed in one dormitory, which was a basketball dormitory. And, we all hung out together. We all did everything together, go out to eat. And when you're in college, you build that family camaraderie where everybody's just together. And the way that it was structured for us is we seen each other every single day. So, whether it was practice, study hall, day off, we all still had study hall, and coming in, we'll still see each other. So, it was great. We all got along really well. I still call those guys my brothers to this day. We built a special bond together, and, for 4 years that, can never be replaced, and, love those guys to death.
That's great. So now just diving a little bit in about how, like, being coached by Rick Pitino, an awesome coach. How was that, being coached by him? And I feel being a point guard, it's important, it's because you're like kind of like an extension of the coach. So just how was that being coached by Rick Pitino?
It was amazing. My first 2 years, I struggled a lot just trying to understand, the college level of playing, what the coach expected out of a player, and, just his whole style. And it took me some time as a freshman and a sophomore, and I really struggled with it. But as I would say, the end of my sophomore year, junior year, I really got the hang of things. Like you said, you become an extension of the coach on the court, where the coach, allowed me to have more freedom, go out there, call plays that I wanted to call, see what I saw on the court. And, I just started having fun with it. Like I said, my teammates helped a lot just because they had a lot of confidence in me to go out there and help lead them. Mm-hmm. And like I said, we already had that special bond. So we all trusted each other out there in the court and had a good time with it, and just enjoyed our time. Yeah.
And I'll just never forget, like, just watching when I was in high school, watching you play, it was just amazing to see. And, what I really want to focus on, though, with, my interview, what this is about is just the process and the grind it takes, to get to where you're at. And so, just from my own experience and just playing basketball, it's all about, like, the consistent reps that you put in, and that's what really sets you apart. So can you just, dive in and, like, tell us your process, the process when you're in, like, college to now, and just the work that you put in. Are you able to, to tell us about that?
It just continues to vary. So, in college, you have individual training every single day, where you're lifting weights. We have individual practice with the coaches in the morning. For myself, I try to come in, a little bit before practice, get some shots up. And then you have, 2.5 hour practice, and then you repeat the same thing the next day. And it's just a constant grind. And myself, as I got older, I, continue to understand that it just continues to take a lot of reps and a lot of consistency to put in. So, I struggled to shoot, like make a lot of threes in college, and, kind of try to raise my percentage up. And, I got better over time throughout my career to even where I am now. It's just about, sacrifices, whether you're, instead of going out, instead of doing something, you get in the gym, you show up an hour early to, make 100, 200 shots, you stay an hour late and then make another 200 shots. And it's just all about consistency and reps and, taking care of your body and trying to be out there in the court. And I think for myself, I always had a hard work ethic, instilled in me from when I was young. So that kind of came easy and natural to me. And, being in the gym is kind of like a safe haven. All the outside distractions of the world really don't mean anything when you're in the gym in between those lines, getting shots up. So I think that's what helps me out a lot, just constantly getting in the gym, whether it's at 6 o'clock in the morning or 1 o'clock at night. You just try to continue get in the gym whenever you can, continue to put the reps in, because it will eventually pay off. And I think that's the biggest takeaway that I can take from everything that I've done is if you continue to put the work in, it will translate eventually.
Yeah. I mean, you hit it right on the head, because it'll, like, the work you put in now, it'll benefit in the future. And, just playing with Louisville and, they have such a high standard. Do you feel that it was, being a point guard that you had do you feel that you felt more responsible? Like you had it, like, did you have to not drag is the right word, but like bring in like your teammates to come in the gym with you, come and shoot? Or, do you just feel that being a point guard, it was more responsibility for you?
I feel as a point guard, and just as who I am, I was more of a lead by example type of guy, where if, you can get in the gym, be seen by your teammates, and they see that you're working hard, that they'll follow. I'll always tell somebody like, hey, do you want to get some shots up? Or, hey, you want to come early, get some shots up? And you just kind of, go that route. I mean, guys are going to, do what they do. Some guys are more motivated than others, but all you can do is, lead by example. You can't drag somebody to the gym and make them want to work. You can show them how to do it. And if they follow, then they follow. And as a point guard for our team, luckily we had guys who worked hard. But I mean, everybody's different. I mean, for myself, I like to get in at a certain point in time, whether it was an hour before practice or an hour after practice, where we had other guys like, one of my favorite teammates, Russ Smith, who hated coming before practice or after practice, but he was the type of guy that loved to come in at nighttime, where he was just free to do whatever he wanted to do, get his workout in. And he was one of the hardest working people that I know, but he just hated working out in the morning. So he loved working out at night. So everybody's different. Everybody has their own schedule, but as long as you put the work in, then like you said, it'll come out. And as a point guard, all you can do is really just show by example.
Mm-hmm. Was there any moment in time, like, in high school, college, even now, where you hit a point of adversity, where a tough challenge hit you in life? And was there a moment in your life that happened to you?
Yeah. I mean, I would say throughout every step of my career, there's always been adversity and, certain situations from when I was in high school, whether it's dealing with family issues, or when I got to college where, like you said, I came in as a McDonald's All-American, had all these accolades, and I wasn't playing any. I wasn't starting. I wasn't, even the backup point guard at the moment. So, dealing with those things, or dealing with injuries in college where you're trying to fight through having really bad ankle sprains or really injuries, and, just sucking it up and playing out there and playing on one leg essentially. And you're not performing to your best, but you're trying to do everything you can to help the team out. So you face, those type of struggles each step of your in your career. But it's about staying mentally strong, having people that are behind you that you can talk to about it, that has your back, that are in your corner, that, is going to keep it real with you, and have somebody that you can confide in. And, because your mental aspect of your game is, equally as important as your physical. Because if you're not there mentally, then, who knows what you're going to go out there and do. Where if you're sharp mentally, you can always try to do things that can help out. And that was one of the things for me where, like, I struggled through each part of my career. And, luckily I have a good support system, with my wife now, my family back home who I can talk to, my good friends that I can talk to, or even old high school coaches, things like that, that you have people that you trust that you can talk to that's going to help you through those times.
Mm-hmm. And I don't know, like, I feel that you just, what you said is very important, is talking to people. Because I feel like kind of just our culture is just like, suck it up, don't talk, you're good, you're good. And I just feel what you said, it's very important. Like, it's okay to talk to people, especially, and how do you, when you do get hit, like in college or high school, when a tough moment came to you, like, what is your thought process, or what goes on in your mind to help you get through those moments?
Kind of like what you said. I mean, when I was, growing up, you're taught to just, suck it up and get over it and keep moving. It wasn't until I was older where I finally learned to just kind of express myself to, like, my old high school coaches when I was at college. Like, hey, man, I'm really struggling, with this. How coaches, like, getting at me about that. Like, I know I can play. I know I can do this. But when I was younger, it was just about, really just sucking it up, getting over it, holding it all in. And for some people, it can be self-destructive. For others, that's how they cope with things. And, for myself, when I was younger, it was, I was very hot-headed, and I was, angry, just hold it in. Sometimes, you break down. But I felt like just, growing up, that was just the norm. It was just like, all right, you can't cry about it, go out there and perform, or, don't come at all. So, in a sense, it kind of makes you tougher. But it can be unhealthy for a lot of players and a lot of people.
Definitely. Yeah, you just hit it on the head, because it can be self-destructive, because I was just kind of the same way, where you just suck it up, but now just, when you mentioned, you're McDonald American in high school, and when you get to Louisville, your playing time, it wasn't like what you wanted it to be. How was that? How was just making that, like, adapting to that for you? How was that? And, just how was your mentality? Like, like how did you work through that?
It was tough, I would say, just because you're not used to that type of adversity. Mm-hmm. Coming from, for my freshman year in high school, I was fortunate to start, and it was funny because it was a crazy situation how I began to start. It was, some incident at school where a couple players got suspended, and I was able to, be thrust into the starting role and just never looked back from there. But, when you get into college, everybody's an All-American, everybody's, all this, and you just really yourself. For me, that I dealt with it is I just continue just to live in the gym. I try to, do everything I can to just get better, learn the system. When my playing time came, go out there, and a big thing for our coach was just defense. So I just try to give it my all on defense, pressure the ball, do every little thing I could just to stay on the court. And as time went on, my role expanded, and I got more freedom, more freedom. And, I was just patient with the process of everything. We had good players in front of me. I feel like I can play with them, but it was just about being patient, trusting in the process of it, and just continuing to get better and better and better.
No, trusting the process. I mean, that's so important. And so, gosh, take us back, because I remember where I was at when you won that national championship, 2013. I was here at home. We were celebrating something. My family, we were all together, and I'll never forget where I was at that moment. Watching you guys play Michigan. Geez, so take us back. And how was that feeling, for making it to the Final Four the year before, and now now you're in that national championship game, you win it. Gosh, just take us back to that moment.
It was crazy just because, like you said, the year before we made it to the Final Four and played Kentucky. And it was just an amazing feeling. Like you hear about, you're going to the Final Four, everything. At the beginning of the year, it's always like, that's the goal, to make it to the Final Four. And so we made it to the Final Four. We got hot at the end of my junior season. We got really hot and made a big run. It made it all the way to the Final Four. We eventually lost to the champions in Kentucky. The next year, we felt like we had the same group of guys. We felt like we were even better and older, wiser, whatever. So when we got to the tournament, we knew everything, what to expect. I would say the first round is always the hardest because you never want to get knocked out the first round. But we were rolling. We got over that hump. And, when we got to the Final Four, we played against Wichita State, which was a really good team who were very hot at the time also. Ended up getting past them. And then in the championship game against Michigan, it was just, we just had nothing to lose, especially as seniors. It was just like, okay, this is the last game. And we just left it all out there. And it was a crazy game because they started off really hot with Spike Albrick. Trey Burke made a couple shots at the beginning, but Spike Albrick kept winning the game. And, and just everything in that sense. But, in the second half, end of the first half, Luke made some great threes, some crazy threes, and then we felt like we had momentum going into halftime and then in the game. Even after we won it, it felt surreal. You always dream about winning a national championship. You always dream about making it to the final stage, but it really doesn't hit you until you get back to around your crowd, your fans back home, and everybody's like, "Oh, you're a champion," because after you win, it's just like, all right, what do we do now? Like, it's over. Like, a lot of people's careers are over at that point, but it's like, you don't know what to really do. So it was amazing.
So we're going to touch on that, talking about after you guys won the national championship. But just going back to when you guys made it to the Final Four the year before, gosh, what was your guys' mentality going into the next year? Like, we need to, what was your guys' thought process as a team?
Well, like I said, we felt like we were better going into the following year. We felt like, from a team's standpoint, we felt like we had everybody coming back. We lost a couple, key factor seniors with Jared Swapshaw, Kyle Kirk, and Chris Smith. And, we felt like, okay, we lost those guys, but, we still have a bunch of returning guys coming back and some newcomers coming in. And we felt like we were solid. We had a great core of guys. And, even from the beginning of the year, we felt like we were really good. We started off hot. And like our whole just mentality was like, we're going to go back. We're going to go back. We're going to go back. And, we already knew the system. We already knew like each other, what each player likes to do in the court, what player can't do and what they can't do. So that was a big help for us that we just, like you said, we had that team camaraderie. Everybody was familiar with each other, and that was a huge thing for us. So we already expected to make it back to the Final Four and, get another crack at making it to a championship game. So that's how we figured it.
So now fast forwarding, you guys win the national championship. Just now for you, what were your thoughts on what was next for you?
Obviously I played well. I thought I played really well. We were the number one team in the nation. And going into it, I was like, okay, well, got to get ready for this draft process. Got to get ready for, the whole, hiring agents, finishing out school, graduating. And just the whole process of everything. And, it was a crazy year, a whirlwind type of year. I ended up getting, engaged that summer. Yeah. We ended up, I got drafted to Detroit, which was a dream come true. It was a very stressful process, but it was just amazing to, for me, from a kid from, Seattle, who grew up in the inner city, to hear your name being called for the draft was, was something that you never forget.
Mm-hmm. Gosh, now going to where you got drafted in 2013 by the Pistons, one being a big moment for you and your family, but honestly, like it was a big moment for like me. I felt like I was getting drafted. You know, it was just like a big moment just for our people. And gosh, you know, you said it was just a tough process. Like how was it? You know, can you just dive in a little more? You know, how that was hearing your name.
I mean, the process of it all was, you know, you had a ton of workouts. I went out to Vegas to train for it, to get ready for the pre-draft camp. You know, a lot of teams, I had about, you know, around 14, 15 different workouts for different teams. So you're flying from city to city, working out, meetings with all these different teams. And, you know, on draft day, you know, I text all my family, all my friends, you know, please, you know, don't call me, don't text me. Like, I'm trying to keep my phone lines open in case somebody, like one of the, you know, because you always expect like one of the general managers to call you and say, hey, we're drafting you. So I'm just telling my mom, like, hey, please, you know, don't call me. I was like, you know, I don't want the lines to be all tied up and then something happened. I was just, you know, very just nervous about the whole thing. But you know, I watched it with my wife, and you know, my agent was calling me, and you know, he's like, okay, we got some interest here and here. Then finally, Detroit ended up calling me. Talked to George David and Joe Dumars, and they were like, hey, you know, we really loved you when you came to the workout. We have this draft pick here. We plan on selecting you with this pick. And you know, I texted all my family and friends, and I was like, hey, man, you know, I'm getting drafted at this. It was just like a huge relief off my shoulders. A big moment, like you said, for my family and friends. And, you know, it was a kind of, you know, a blessing, you know, just because, you know, even for my, you know, my Samoan side of my family, just the proud moment they had to just see, you know, the Siva name being called like in the NBA, and to have that as, you know, I loved it. You know, a lot of, you know, my nieces, like I call my nieces and nephews, but like my cousins, you know, were really proud to just, you know, represent that name and to have it, you know, out in like a bigger spotlight. And so that really meant a lot to me.
Yeah, and like I said, it was a huge moment for like our culture, because you don't see a lot. You don't see Samoans getting drafted, you know, or Polynesians getting drafted. I mean, the only one was Wally Rank. Did you know who that? Are you familiar with who Wally Rank is? Yeah, Wally Rank. Actually, I'm gonna have him as a guest, you know, in like next week. But yeah, so like you don't see a lot of polys getting drafted. So that was just a huge moment. That was a huge moment for.
I think it was only him and like James Johnson was like the only ones that was like in the NBA at the time.
But James is still in the league, right? He's okay. Yeah, that's right. He's with the Mavs. He's with the Mavs, and no, that's just so huge to us. And now just being in the NBA, you know, being with the Pistons, how was that? You know, how was that whole experience, just, you know, playing in the NBA?
It was a surreal experience just because I got the chance to, you know, play with another guy from Seattle, Rodney Stuckey. I had some great vets who I've watched growing up playing basketball, like Chauncey Billups, you know, Josh Smith, and we got other guys like Brandon Jennings, Cole Bynum, Charlie Villanueva, just guys that you kind of watch growing up playing in the NBA, and now you're actually, you know, on a team with them. So it was really cool. A great experience for me that I'll never forget. I learned a lot of lessons from those guys. Took a lot of lessons from those guys that I learned and instilled it in my game that I still use today. And it was just a really big learning experience for me, a really big blessing. And, you know, unfortunately it didn't work out, but, you know, I'm still able to play basketball. I'm still playing at a, you know, high level, and I'm, you know, enjoying life.
No, of course. And, you know, it's just like everything happens for a reason, you know, and you still just know that, you know, although like the career, it fell short, just know that like you're still a trailblazer to all of us, you know, and, you know, getting drafted. So, you know, how was it playing in Germany? You know, was Germany the first, like, because did you play somewhere else prior to Germany?
Yeah, so after Detroit, I went down and played. I signed with Orlando, but I was assigned to their D-League team at the time in Erie Bayhawks. So I played 1 year there. Then I left and went to Italy for my first year in Caserta, and then ended up signing in Berlin the following year. So it's been good. I really enjoy Berlin. The nice thing is everyone speaks English, so that helps me out a lot. But, you know, we're now playing in EuroLeague, which is the second, you know, highest league in the world after the NBA. So that's great from, you know, myself, and I'm really enjoying it.
That's great. And how does it, you know, being Samoan, being half Samoan, what does that mean to you? You know, what has that meant for you just throughout your career?
It's been a lot, just because, you know, growing up just around my dad, you know, he was kind of in and out, but just the love and support that I received from my Samoan side of my family has always been amazing. And, you know, I love those guys to death. Those guys are the ones who've always been there to protect me, always been there to support me. And, you know, they're my family, you know, so always, you know, wants to represent my Samoan side. You know, I'd always tell people, you know, I'm not the biggest Samoan you'll probably see. I'm probably the smallest one. But, you know, it was just great to be on that type of stage to really represent, you know, for Polynesians, just because, like you said, there's not a lot that plays basketball. Even in my family, they all play football or baseball, or something similar to that sort. And a lot of them really didn't get a chance to, you know, who were very talented, didn't get a chance to go off to college, just because, you know, that's how our culture is, really. You know, a lot of, you know, Samoans don't really get that opportunity because they have to take care of their families. They have to take care of, you know, everything else. So I was very fortunate to, you know, kind of be split on both sides and to get the opportunity to go out there and really represent for my whole family. And, you know, I really took that as a badge of honor to go out there and, you know, go out there, produce, and, you know, represent the Siva name with honor out there on the court.
Yeah, because, you know, you're representing something, you know, just so much bigger than you. And, you know, now, but just, you know, being a dad, you know, how is that? And, you know, being a husband, you know, just how is that? How is just everything?
Yeah. Oh, it's the best thing in the world. I mean, I wouldn't trade it for anything. Having two little girls who don't really care about anything basketball wise, you know, after a tough game, if it's a tough loss or a win, they're always the same. You know, they're always happy to see me. And I really take, you know, fatherhood serious to the extreme. I spoil my kids to the max that I can. You know, being a husband it's been amazing. And, you know, I really enjoy just the family aspect of it all.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. And, you know, just what is your, you know, just now with everything, you know, your career, like where you're at now, just what is your message to people that want to be successful in their life, you know, or want to get to where you are? What would your message be for them?
My message for all of them, man, is just, you know, trust in God. Just always, you know, He has a plan for you, and just never really, you know, the cliche, just never give up on anything. You know, a lot of our situations are, you know, due to timing, you know, the right time, right place, right moment. But I see a lot of people out there, and it's just about just trusting in yourself and, you know, just believing in yourself that if you want to, you can. You know, I've seen it plenty of times happen with friends, happen with family that, you know, they just got caught up in something else, who were very talented people. They just, you know, something else came up, you know, and they didn't put their all into it. And I feel like for those who out there who want to achieve something, whoever wants to achieve to get better and better and reach that next level, is just, you know, always work for it. Have a good support system behind you, some people that's going to have your back through it all, that you can talk to, but always, you know, work for everything, because you're going to make a lot of sacrifices in your life if you want to be successful.
No, thank you for sharing that. And so, at the end of this, after you're done playing, what do you want to be remembered as, and what do you want your legacy to be?
For me, it's just I want to be remembered as a good person. Someone who was able to go out there, represent my family, my culture, my faith. Like you said, just being a person that can show that you can do anything if you put your mind to it. Someone that can break barriers as far as, sports worlds go. That if you're Samoan, Polynesian, whatever, you don't just have to play football. You can play other sports and be successful at it. And, there's a lot of young Samoans, Polynesian kids that I see growing up. You have Tahina at Oregon, who's playing really well.
Yep.
Keelan is a high school kid from Cal, who's, shooting up the ranks. Samuta from University of Hawaii, who's opted out this year to get ready for the NBA. So you have a lot of players who I've, been able to, check up with. You have a big trainer I like to keep up with. It's Clint, and he tells me about all the Polynesian kids that he likes to work with that are coming up in the ranks, and it's just great to see for myself. And that's just kind of somebody I want to be remembered as. If they always want to reach out to me to give advice. I mean, for me to give them advice on anything, they're always welcome to holler at me, Instagram, Twitter, whatever, and I'll message them back and help them whatever way I can.
Yeah, no, thank you. Just thank you for just being that person that the people that want to pursue basketball, thank you for being someone that we can reach out to. And how often do you go back home?
To Seattle, I go home I try to make it home once a summer. It's been tougher lately to make it back. I've been fortunate enough, a lot of my family get to come out and visit me, and thank God for Zoom and FaceTime. We sometimes have family night over Zoom where we play games and Yahtzee and stuff like that. So that's always great. But yeah, it's tougher with COVID and everything going on. And it's been tougher since I've been playing in Europe, but try to make it home as much as I can.
Mm-hmm. Oh no, that's awesome. Who was your favorite player growing up?
And what? As far as
basketball, who was your favorite player that you looked up?
Like in football, it was Junior Seau, just because my father was a big Junior Seau fan, just Samoan guy, Polynesian guy. And then you had Troy Polamalu, because football was my sport. One of my cousins, Chris Palamatu, he made it to the NFL. He played fullback for the Steelers. And then for me, for basketball, it was mostly, Allen Iverson. He was just this small guy, just fearless dude, a lot of swagger, and, guys like that. I loved watching T-Mac and, people of that sense. So those are kind of my people that I've watched growing up. I wasn't really a big, watching NBA every night type of guy. I was more just the highlights guy. Oh, this guy is cool. I can look at him, and yeah, that's how I was.
No, thank you. No, thank you for saying that. So we're in the home stretch, and I'd love to do some rapid fire questions. So the first thing that comes to mind, the first one, what is your favorite moment that you've had so far while playing?
Winning championship.
Second,
college.
Okay, college UK championship. Second, top 3 favorite artists.
I like The Weeknd. I like Jack Harlow from Louisville, and my little cousin. I listened to him. Grew from the South End Siva. He just started producing music, and I enjoy listening to him, which I didn't think I would, but he's funny and good artist.
Okay. The third one. So if you could have dinner with 4 people, 4 goats, anyone, who it could be anyone, yeah. Who would those 4 be?
Dinner with 4 goats. I would say I want to have dinner with The Rock, Dwayne Johnson.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
just because, I mean, he's probably one of the most interesting people in the world. I would love to have dinner with like a Jay-Z, like a mogul in that sense, and see how like just his hustle and his grind. That's tough. I have dinner. Michael Jordan.
Okay.
One more. I don't know. Probably someone like, like Oprah Winfrey or something. Just, you want to surround yourself with people who are successful and who know how to be successful. So I would say you want to meet with those type of people to kind of pick their brain and how they grinded and succeeded in life in that sense.
Okay. So Oprah, was that your last one?
Yeah, I would say that.
Oprah? Okay. Alrighty, the last one. If this is the fourth one. If you could play one-on-one with any other player, who would that be?
I don't care. That one doesn't bother me at all. I've played against plenty of players before, so yeah, that honestly.
Anyone.
It doesn't like intrigue me, but like, oh yeah, I wish I could play this guy one-on-one. I feel like as a basketball player and as like who I played like in my career, it's like, yeah, I really don't like find it. I don't know, playing one-on-one. Like, yeah, we really want to take this guy out.
Of course. Okay, so anyone, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. So let's go the last one. Your all-time. Let's go all-time starting five. All time.
I don't know. I would say I'm going this route. I'm going to say all Seattle guys. I'm going Jamal Crawford, Jason Terry, Aaron Brooks, Brandon Roy, and Isaiah Thomas or Rodney Stuckey. Yeah, those guys.
Who's your big man?
We're playing small ball. We're all guards. We're Seattle guards. You might have Spencer Halls. Spencer can play center. We're going out there all guards. Brandon Roy can play center.
No, that's great. And then you know what? This is a rapid fire question, but you had some boosties back in the day. Like you had some hops. Like what was that natural? Like did you work on it or what was that?
So I used to try to work on my hops all the time. I used to wear the jump soles, the big old thing in the front of the shoe. Terrence Williams, who had amazing athleticism, was like, "Hey man, you got to run heels backwards." So I would run all the heels backwards I could find. I would go run heels wherever I can find a heel. We had a heel from my grandma's house, my dad. We used to walk from practice every day, and we had this big-ass heel. So my dad would always make us kind of walk this heel, run this heel. So I literally trained and try to work on my hops all the time. So I think it was God-given as far as just athleticism, but trying to work on my hops and everything. I literally put the work in to try to be as bouncy as I could.
No, because on your Instagram, like, I don't know, it was like a video and it showed you just getting up, and I was like, yeah, damn, I didn't have that, but Peyton, I just want to say, thank you so much for joining me on my show. And I just hope your story will just inspire and give hope to anyone listening to this and show them that they can achieve anything they set their mind to just by putting in the work, committing and dedicating themselves to become the best that they can be and just trusting the process. So thank you all for tuning into Inside the Grind, and Peyton, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Grinding on my life, sacrifice, hustle pay the price, one slice, got the roll of dice, all my life, I've been grinding all my life.